Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan, Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Alright, we got some good stuff today. Once again, I do have to explain something to you guys. So I think on my latest podcast, you heard me talking like it was Saturday, and that podcast was in fact recorded Saturday, but for some reason I couldn't get to publish. So published today, so apologies. For that. Alright, so we're gonna open it up actually with the Where Did I Go Wrong segment. First one is, I thought the Broncos O-line was going to be well improved this year. And I know they didn't go out and get any crazy guys, but I thought it would be enough to meet a substantial improvement. But no, I mean, it is the preseason. I can't jump to conclusions too quick, but that line looked pretty rough yesterday, and Wilson was getting hit left and right. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that was a surprise to me over the weekend. The Rams, who I think I'm a little higher on than most people. Most people see them as another 5-win season this year. I think they can get 7 or 8, but they got completely outclassed by the Chargers. Again, preseason, but I talk a lot of NFL, so really the only thing I'm wrong on is NFL stuff. I haven't talked a lot of NBA recently, or MLB, so I have less of a chance for error. Although, the next one is an MLB. I mean, I've been trying to talk myself into the fact that the Yankees can get back to form, but no. The top 3 highest payrolls in the league, Yankees, Padres, Mets, are all expected to miss the playoffs, which is shocking because I always thought you can buy success in baseball, but doesn't appear to be true. All right. So Trey Lance, that's the end of that segment, by the way. So Trey Lance is another guy I wanted to talk about. He got sacked 4 times in his debut, and he did throw 1 touchdown, but that probably should have been a pick, in all honesty. He 2 dropped intercepted. He had 2 throws that should have been a pick. I don't know, he just doesn't look great. Honestly, he really doesn't look great at all. I think this season, obviously, roll with Purdy at the 1. Have Darnold as the backup. Give Lance maybe some time. I mean, it takes some guys a while. So, I mean, we'll see how Lance can do. All right, let's shift to this. So, I don't know, when Sean Payton said he would play the Broncos starters, I just figured it was kind of a 1-drive thing. I didn't think they would get as many reps in as they did. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea with Wilson because he has to get used to the offense, but everyone else, I think it's just a little bit out of left field. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, who am I to question Sean Payton? He is one of the best coaches in the NFL, but it's, I don't know, playing your stars in the preseason is a really risky move. It seems like a recipe for disaster to me, but again, I could always be wrong, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of questions going in the NFL right now. I mean, I think the Commanders are going to finish last, but even they, I think the fate of their season is pretty I don't think that's in question. I think we all figure I think we all figure they'll finish last in their division, but we don't know how this Bieniemy situation is going to shake out. His relationship with Rivera and the other players on the team. Because LeSean McCoy was on the herd, and he had some choice words for Bieniemy. Saying, he wasn't only hard on the players that needed a push, but even the good players that were doing just fine. So I don't know. We'll see how Bieniemy shakes out in Washington. It is very possible. The reason Bieniemy wasn't getting a good head coaching job is because people saw through the fact that offense was purely ran by Reed and Mahomes, and Bieniemy didn't have much to do with it. That's what I think is going to happen. But a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainties. All right. I also wanted to talk about Kenny Pickett. He looked good yesterday. That's what I took from it. He should be solid. He's got the weapons, the coach. He has the defense. I mean, I'm not... In all honesty, I kind of ripped him apart on Saturday. I don't think they're going to do poorly because they don't have the roster. The roster is good. On paper, they should be a successful football team. My concern is that they're in the AFC with the rookie quarterback, and they're going to have to, if they make the playoffs, they'll have to be facing Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Who else is there? They got Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson both twice a year. I think Pickett's good, but he's not better than any of those guys. And their division, the Ravens and Bengals, it's going to be hard for the Steelers to find substantial success. All right. The next quarterback I want to talk about is Justin Fields. Now, I went over stats. I don't remember. I think it was like the last 10 starts. He's been much more productive than he was in like his first 10 starts, which makes sense. Getting used to the NFL atmosphere. But that's the last 10 starts. That's pretty much since DJ Moore, Robert Tonyan came to town. So when he got slightly better weapons, his performance improved. And in the preseason game, he didn't get a lot of reps, but he looked pretty good. He's going to be a running quarterback. We just have to be used to that. The same thing with Lamar Jackson happened where people were criticizing him for running a lot, but we just got to get used to those guys being running quarterbacks because those guys exist. Not every quarterback is going to be a pocket passer. It's going to be mobile guys, and Justin Fields is one of those guys. All right, so the Cowboys rookie running back, Deuce Vaughn, says he gained a lot of confidence after his... honestly, I know it's preseason, and I'm probably reading too much into this stuff, but... I mean, it does matter how these quarterbacks perform in the preseason. Because if they're not performing well in the preseason, it's hard to have hope for the regular season when they play starters. So you want to at least have your quarterback playing pretty well in the preseason. Even if they're a rookie, they should be doing good against backups if you want them to be starters. And Deuce Vaughn's probably going to be a backup, obviously, to Tony Pollard, but if this injury comes back with Pollard, because that was a pretty big injury that he dealt with. But if Deuce Vaughn turns out to be a legit running back, I think getting him and losing Elliott is a huge win financially. All right. So Baker had a solid Preseason performance, 8 for 9 and a touchdown. Nothing new. I mean, this guy was a starting quarterback in the NFL. He did make the playoffs. It's not surprising he would dominate backups. It's hard to buy into, to be excited about anything with the Buccaneers. Tough to be excited about them. I think they're a last place in the division kind of team. I don't think Baker is that good a quarterback. He played well yesterday, but not saying much. It is the preseason. So I would hope he played well. I don't think he's going to fare well against starters because he's been wildly inaccurate, inconsistent in his last few years as a starter. And it just so happens they have a tough schedule as well. So that just... And honestly, I think it wouldn't be bad for them to have a down year. This year's draft is supposed to be really solid, have some really good players. If they get a high draft pick, they're not in the worst spot. In fact, they're in a better spot than the 7 and 10 teams will be in. All right, so Jim Harbaugh is expected to coach the full season after his 4-game suspension was called off. What's interesting about Jim Harbaugh, is that, I mean, people criticize him for what he did in the NFL. He did make a Super Bowl. Let's not forget that. He had a rough few years after that, but if he can make the Super Bowl in the NFL, and he's been pretty damn successful in college, you know, because think about it, if he wins a national title this year, because Michigan, I mean, they were ranked second in the preseason poll, which, I mean, that doesn't mean they're automatically going to be a top contending team, but they really should be. Their schedule isn't difficult. The teams they have on their schedule, not difficult at all. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a return to the NFL. If he wins the national title. If he doesn't, he's probably going to stay in college. And he might want to stay in college. But if he wins the national title, I think it's very possible he gets an NFL offer. Because listen, there are some teams that are going to need a coach. Like, Todd Bowles is probably done as the head coach in Tampa after this year. If Tampa does what I think they'll do and they finish last, Bowles should be put back as a defensive coordinator. He's much better there. Is it crazy that they might consider Jim Harbaugh as a replacement? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think it's highly likely, but I think it's definitely a possibility. All right, we're going to talk about another quarterback's performance. Anthony Richardson. He had an embarrassing interception, but it was his first game in the NFL. Can't pick at it too much. What I saw from that game is what I thought I'd see. A lot of Josh Allen, it's a lot of first-year Josh Allen. A lot of Big Ben, a lot of Cam Newton. He's special. He has a lot of talent, but he's not... He's going to be inconsistent. He's going to be a little inaccurate. He's not going to be this. It's not going to be perfect. That's what I'm saying. You know, his completion percentage probably won't be crazy. You know, especially his first year. I think he's going to have a first year similar to Josh Allen, where he has a horrible completion percentage, but shows a lot of talent, a lot of signs that he can be the guy. All right. And, you know, I think Richardson and the Colts could be back where they were a few years ago, where they were a playoff team in a few years. But these next few years are going to be rough for them. These next few years aren't going to be easy. And Sean Payton with the Broncos, his task is he has to completely flip that culture around in Denver. He has to completely change. He has to bring Wilson back to where he was. And, he's in a division with Mahomes and Herbert and Andy Reid. So it's going to be hard to completely turn them around when you're playing Mahomes and Herbert twice a year. You know, it's not an easy task, what he's going with. It's going to be hard to flip that culture around and bring them back to the playoffs. And I don't even think they have a team to make the playoffs. I see them winning a little bit more games than they did last year. And Sean Payton's probably going to be a media circus this year. I mean, after everything you said about Hackett, for him to win like only 3 more games than Hackett did, which I think is very possible, very plausible. Yeah, he's going to get some heat. If you talk a big game, you're going to have to back that up. So Sean Payton's going to have to probably win like 8-9 games if he wants to avoid the heat he'll get if he doesn't have success. All right. Obviously, another quarterback I wanted to talk about. Jordan Love, who plays for my favorite team, the Packers. He looks pretty good. There's nothing to complain about. But there's also nothing to be too excited about. That's the thing. You know, like, he made some good throws, made some good decisions. And like I said, you hope your quarterback, who's supposed to be a starter, plays well against backups. You know, the real test hasn't come yet for Jordan Love. You know, but, I mean, this past game, nothing to complain about. And honestly, he doesn't have to be great. He has a great roster around him. Great running back crew. Great. I'd say at least a good O-line. I'd say great O-line barring injuries, but there have been a lot of injury problems on that line the past few years, so it's hard to believe that they won't have some of that. But I don't think there's any reason to worry too much. I'm very much on the fence. There's no reason to worry, but there's also no reason to be too excited about what he's going to do. I mean, some people are complaining about he made a really bad throw. He had a wide open. His tight end was wide open. Completely overthrew him, which is bad, but it's one pass. Can't get too worked up over that, you know? Aaron Rodgers had plenty of passes where he completely overthrew. You can't make every throw. Can't worry about it. So, Jordan Love, he doesn't have to be great, and I don't think he will be that great, especially this year. But I also don't think we've been given a reason to think he's bad, other than the one start he had against the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, that was rough. It was against the Chiefs. What do you want a guy to do in his first start? Can't do much. Alright. I'm going to do 2 more segments, then call it a day. So, Derek Carr got in the game yesterday for the Saints. Not yesterday, a few days ago. For the Saints, he looks pretty good. No surprise. No different than what I think of how Baker Mayfield did well. People like Mayfield, Carr, Russell Wilson, they should do well in the preseason because they're veterans. They've been starting for a while. There's no reason they should do poorly against backups. I do think Carr is a pretty good quarterback. I think the Saints win that division, but they're probably a first-round exit. And the Saints, honestly, they have an easy start of the season. They don't play a good quarterback until Trevor Lawrence in Week 7. So, if they get off to a hot start, they'll probably be... Again, they're in the NFC, which is an easy conference. You know, a lot of people are talking about who the third best team is. I've heard the Lions, which is probably going to be my bet. I would bet on the Lions being the third best team behind the Niners and Eagles. But the Saints, don't sleep on them. I mean, again, I don't think they're going to be special, but don't count them out as a potential third place in the NFC team. They could win a playoff game in that conference, as crazy as it sounds. I'm going to close this by, yet again, talking about Kenny Pickett. The only criticism I've heard about Kenny Pickett is he holds the ball for too long, which is something I think everyone noticed last year. He would hold the ball too long. He wouldn't think quick enough. I think that's going to be probably the only problem he faces, but he seems solid nonetheless. No, he's, like I said, he's got the weapons. He's got George Pickens. He's got Mike Tomlin. That defense is solid as well. And I think the Steelers, like I said, good roster on paper. I'm just not sure how successful they'll be. All right. That'll be it for today. This is Still My Data Stone. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. Still My Data Stone. Have a good day. I'll see you either tomorrow. If not, the latest I'll be back is Friday. So, see you then.